Hi, I'm Bob Conder, and I've been doing film for 40 years. One of the best experiences I ever had was working with Jim Carrey on Dumb and Dumber. I was hired as a stuntman. He was such a consummate professional. He was not at all what I anticipated. I thought he'd just be goofing around. When it came to the comedy, he was, but when it came to the stunts, he was very serious and what do I need to do, where do I need to be? And if you look at that scene in the restaurant where he fights all the waiters, I'm one of the waiters. And what we shot was 3 times what actually made it in the final cut. So even though you only see my feet in the final version, my name's in the credit and I still get residual checks. When I was really young, I had a speech impediment. I grew up as though I was partially deaf and from Boston. And my mother stuck me in these diction classes, just to help me with it. And going through high school and college, theater and drama and speech became really an easy credit for me. Years later, after being a rock and roll musician, I wound up in a talent agency's office. And they asked if I wanted to be in a movie, and I just kind of laughed and I said, sure. And that was really the start of my career. I learned a lot from watching other people, particularly really good people. I did a fight scene once with Tommy Lee Jones, and he was so focused on that. And I asked him, I said, why are you so focused on everything that you do? He said, I need to be like a brain surgeon. I can't afford to make a mistake. Another story I like is this fact that I did a scene with Anthony Hopkins. Just me and Anthony Hopkins. It's for The World's Fastest Indian, and you can find it in the deleted scenes, where I'm a truck driver. And it was really fun because he's a perfect gentleman. He's just so great to work with. And we're doing this big long shot, and they didn't even have mics on us. And he walks up and he goes, well, Bob, what should we talk about?
Hi, mate.
So you crazy or something?
No, I just want to make sure you stop. It's difficult hitching with a car and a trailer.
Yeah.
Just a pleasure to be with. And you find that with a lot of the professionals that I've been around. One person I really admire is Peter Gallagher. I got to work with him on a show. And one thing I learned is that if somebody else misses their mark, he could adjust his position so you can still get the shot. He knew his surroundings. He knew what was going on. Great guy. In fact, the first day he was on the show, he came walking around with a call sheet to all the crew and shaking everybody's hand, hi, I'm Peter, and had their names, and he just liked to hang out with the crew. Just a real gentleman, really, really good. Anyway, moved along, and then I realized that living in out of sight of LA, the biggest part I was ever going to get was a day player. So I started looking at working behind the camera. One of the local casting agents asked if I would be a stand-in for a movie, where you watch the rehearsal and then you stand in for a particular actor while they light and set up the camera and everything, and then you go to craft service while they do the scene. I did that for a TV series. It was called Crossroads with Robert Urich. And it was really interesting because I was just trying to learn everything I could, because as a stand-in, you're in the middle of everything. And you're watching the lights come in, and you're watching this happen, and you're watching all these people as they work. And you can see this orchestrated group of people who come together like a beehive, and then somebody says, okay, we're rolling, and everything's perfect. And you're just ready to go. At the end of that, the transpo coordinator came up to me and he said, I've watched how you work and you have a great work ethic. If you ever want to drive, I'll hire you. The next show I did was driving for him. He hired me over and over again. And then I was working on Touched by an Angel, wound up getting behind the scenes with the grip department, worked there quite a while. It's always interesting being grip because sometimes they're kind of considered the lower end of the film society, if you will. But these are the hardest working people. And one thing I've learned about all of the really good people in film, you ask them to do something, you won't get it till the very last minute. It'll be 10 times better than what you thought, and they will have done it cheaper than what you expected. There's so many people who are obsessive compulsive in this business, and they just do everything they can to make it the very, very best. After a while, I wound up finding that being an AD was really a good place I'd like to be. The one thing about being an AD is you should know everything that's happening and everything that needs to happen all at the same time. And it's a matter of orchestrating all these people. I tell students, I said, you know, you're not making money unless the camera's turned on. What does it take to get it turned on? That's what you need to worry about. You need to have the right people there. You need to have makeup. You need to have the props. Everything so the camera can turn on. And that's the best that we can do when we're making a movie. You know, you get into post and they get to handle with all the mistakes that you made. I had a good friend by the name of Kent Johnson, who was very, very knowledgeable. And he knew how to handle people and how to get things done and not get riled up. And I really admired that about him, and he taught me quite a bit. I really wanted to be an AD and into production, so I bought Movie Magic software. I taught myself how to do it. I took all of the online stuff I could and wound up just creating things, just for my own practice to how to do it. I learned that trick from a gal named Lisa Satriano, who was an AD. I got into writing because I just love story. I love the way everything has 3-act structure. You have all these different plot points, no matter what methodology you use. They're all pretty much the same. You look at the different characters and what role they play in a story. And that to me is what's fascinating, is how people take the same similar plots over and over again, and they make it their own. They make it, they use their imagination. They put it in a different world. That's always fascinated me. So I went back to school and got my MFA in creative writing with an emphasis in screenplays, just so I could learn more about that. I now teach it. I now do rewrites for people to help tighten up scripts, help give it maybe a little extra pizzazz, whatever I can do on it. But story is something that I think everybody in the film business needs to understand. You know, a really great DP can tell you where they are in the story arc by the way they're lighting it, what they're doing. Production designer, the patterns they use, the colors they use. All these things add to the story being told. And even though you don't shoot a movie from start to finish and it's all jumbled up, you need to know where you are within that story arc in order to make it an interesting and compelling story for the audience. Because if you don't get an emotional connection to the audience, you've wasted everything. When I worked on Eminent Domain, there was a lot of really good actors. There was Tommy Lee Jones, there was Terry O'Quinn, there was Ben Johnson, who was hired originally as a wrangler for Ford in his old westerns. He wound up winning an Academy Award for The Last Picture Show, was the name of it. The thing I've found is that most people in film, they're at one of 3 levels. They're young and they're dumb and they'll do anything to please. Whatever you want, I'll do it for you. Then there's the people who've had a certain amount of success and they believe that you owe them. They're the hard ones to work with. The best are the ones like Ben Johnson. To him, it was just a job. He would show up, he would do his skill, he would make the movie the best he could, create that character, and then he'd go home. In fact, we talked often about what he did with his money, and he said the biggest thing you can do is buy land. As long as you can pay the taxes on the land, you buy it. And that's where he created his wealth, was by having these ranches in Oklahoma. I did a TV series down in Arizona that I absolutely love. We're filming in Mescal. It's part of Old Tucson, but it's not around the tourist trap. It's a different part. Richard Dean Anderson was the star and the producer. John Delancey was the co-star. And one thing I learned from that guy is what you do that's not written. I remember one scene, it's set in the 1800s, and he's kind of an inventor, a Tesla type character. Richard Dean Anderson was supposed to be a writer, and they thought he was this real gunslinger. And we come walking out of the bar, and John Delancey has folded up a paper airplane, and he just kind of looks at it and throws it, and then walked away. It was like, this is interesting. But the little things that he did added so much to the character. It was really neat. And this is, again, another perfect gentleman. One day we go to lunch, and there's a jazz band playing at lunch. And he was standing there, and I walked over and I said, so what's with the jazz band? He said, it's my birthday. I went, your birthday? And he says, yeah, this is my birthday gift to the crew, to listen to this jazz band. You know, it's the nicety of those people. Those are the ones that you remember. Those are the people that you want to work with again, are the good people, the ones who come prepared, the ones who add to it, the ones who leave their ego outside it. Those are the good people to work with. One place I've had a lot of opportunity is in low-budget films. And I mean some are super low-budget films. I did one where they had made a deal with the local restaurants to feed the crew for credit at the end of the movie. We ate chili cheese dogs 3 times a week. Then pretty soon everybody else was buying their own lunch at McDonald's. But you go all the way to that, to the largest movies. I've been on 2 movies that cost over $200 million, where you have the same problems, you just have more money to fix them with. And the food on those is always better. I did one in Africa called Freetown. A couple of friends of mine were making this movie, and I think I was the last guy on their list who happened to be available. There was a reference or something, and they said, will you come AD this for us? So 5 of us went from the United States over to Ghana, West Africa, and we spent 6 weeks over there and made this little low-budget movie. The thing that was really cool was everybody else was from Ghana, all the other filmmakers. And over there, they have a different work system than we do. They work for 8 hours a day, and that's it. And everybody helps move lights. Doesn't matter what your job is. But I still, to this day, 5, 6 years later, I still have friends that I made in West Africa that we still communicate once in a while. It's just fun to meet people from all over the world. If I didn't go into film, what would I be doing? I've never thought of really doing anything else as a lifelong goal. I have taught quite a bit. I have helped start a film school. It's a high school. I have taught at a university level. I have another film school that some friends are putting together and have asked me to join. So we'll see where that takes. The thing about film, and part of the entertainment is it's that story. It's inside all of us. It's within our DNA. We have a pretty good idea what's going to happen. It's just how it's presented to us. But it's that part of entertainment, I think, that brings us together and makes us better people because we share it. Whether it's a book or a movie or a music video, something that can help unite people. I think it's integral into our society. Advice for young filmmakers. The old guys aren't going to listen to me. They already have it figured out. The biggest thing is, are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure you want to be away from your family for 12 to 15 hours a day on the short days, where you only have the weekend, maybe one day to do your laundry and get back to work? It's very hard on family relationships. My wife and I have been married for 30 years, and we're one of the few couples I'm aware of who both of us work in the industry and have been successful and has lasted. The marriage has lasted. One thing too is, decide what it is you want to do and then how much time you want to put into doing that. I know one gal who all she wanted to do was to be a camera operator. Went through college, got her degree. All I'm going to do is operate camera. And that's all she's ever done her entire career. She doesn't want to be a DP. She doesn't want to do anything else. She just wants to turn on the switch and capture the magic. And she's done that. But there's other people like me who I've kind of bounced all over the place. One key grip that I worked with quite a bit, he has his doctorate in architecture. And this guy can be teaching at a university, and yet he's a key grip because that's where he found himself. You have to be adaptive if you're in film. You have to be able to switch departments if needed. If somebody's short-handed, jump in. I know the unions don't allow that if it's a union show, but a good friend of mine, Michael Givens, who's a DP, he told a class one time, he said, if they ask you if you can do it, you say yes. And then you go home that night and you figure it out. And you come back the next day as best you can, knowing how to do it. He said, that's the only way you're going to get ahead in this business. And he's done over 1,000 commercials with Ridley Scott. This is a guy who really knows the business inside and out. You just have to be adaptable. The whole thing about making movies, it's about solving problems and solving issues. The one day we showed up in a parking garage and we're supposed to shoot this scene out there, and the location manager had contacted the wrong people. We didn't have permission. So we got kicked out. So we went to the second location for the day and shot that and said, okay, what can we do and how can we solve this? And we wound up shooting that scene in a nearby parking lot next to the office. You just have to find solutions to the issues that show up. I've been in hailstorms, I've been in rain, I've had all kinds of weather issues. I did a TV series called Extreme Rescue, where for the pilot, it was a 45-minute snowmobile ride from the parking lot up to where the set was. Trucks couldn't get up there. Everything was on snowmobile or snowcats. I've been to Africa. I've been to Guatemala, Mexico, Belize. It's the funnest business you'll ever be in. It's really, really grueling mentally and physically. You have to be in shape. You have to be able to withstand some of the egos and some of the rudeness that shows up on some of these sets. But I'll tell you, there's one thing I've learned. There's two types of people that you'll meet in film. The very best and the very worst. The very worst, you'll work 1 or 2 shows with them and then you'll never see them again because people never hire them. The very best, those people are going to work all the time and hopefully you run into them over and over and over again. Those are the long-lasting relationships that you make with film people that literally last a lifetime. There's an old Zen story about a college professor that wants to learn Zen. And so he goes to the master and says he wants him to teach him and then begins to pontificate on everything he knows about Zen. Well, the master says, would you like some tea? And they sit down and he takes his cup and while he's listening, he starts filling it. Well, pretty soon the cup's overflowing and it's on the table and it's going on the floor. And the professor can't stand it and he says, my cup is full. And the master says, that's right. I can't teach you till you empty your cup. That to me, I think is an integral part of this business, really anything in life. If your cup is full, you're not teachable. If you're not teachable, you're not going to continue to grow, you're not continue to have great relationships and work on wonderful projects. One thing I've learned in this business is you can work as long as you want to. There was one kind of a low-budget movie here where the actor was 102, one of the lead actors. 102 years old, still working. You've got to love something if you're still going to do that. In my career, I have over 500 credits in music and theater and film and commercials and everything to do with entertainment. And I stopped counting because it was kind of becoming more of a chore to count than it was to just go work. Just go have fun. And be thankful for every day you get to do what you want. You get to enjoy the people you're around. You get to tell stories. I do occasionally get that people think I look like Werner Herzog. I'm Werner Herzog. I'm here today to talk to you about film, cinema, the things that touch your heart, that brings humanity to tears. People do sometimes say, hey, you look like so-and-so. And it's always somebody famous, and I just wonder if they ever ask them, hey, anybody ever tell you look like Bob Conder? I wound up getting into stunts and doing quite a bit with that. My first stunt was I drove a moving van over a bridge while it exploded and landed on its side. That's the same film that I did a fight scene with Tommy Lee Jones on. Fun times. What else can I tell you?
What was the name of that movie?
That name of that movie wound up being Eminent Domain. So go out and make your movie.